as athletically what this really means in the quantum leap?
We like to say that at the University of Louisville we're on an amazing academic trajectory in terms of the quality of our students, our graduation rate, our funded research. We know we have more to do. And as I said, what greater academic neighborhood to live in than the ACC? You have great public schools, great private schools. Some of the top public and private schools absolutely in the United States. So it's a sense of pride for us, number one. Number two, it takes us into new recruiting markets. Number three, it offers us collaborations. We're already have announced a collaboration with regard to emergency medicine with University of Pittsburgh, and we're included in all kinds of conversations now and opportunities now that we just really haven't had before. So I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. But this is the academic neighborhood that we want to be associated with and affiliated with as we continue to work as hard as we can every year to get academically better and better and better.
We're going to take our next question right over here.
Ken Taylor, Wave TV. Tom, when you took over this athletic program and you took over a football program that was struggling at that time, how crazy is it that 17 years later, you know, you're taking this program into this conference? Is that even beyond your wildest dreams?
Yes, it is. There's no question about it. But, you know, the great thing is there's been a lot of great people that have made that possible. Fantastic coaches, unbelievable student athletes. We've had a lot of success. But the one thing about it, Ken, is we're not happy with that. We want to continue to get better and better. We're not content. We want to grow. We want to help this conference as much as we possibly can. They've got world-renowned schools in there. They've got the national champion in there. So it's going to be very, very competitive, but it's something that we've always welcomed. We've always welcomed that competitiveness.
Right here, third row.
Eric Crawford from WDRB. Tom, you mentioned being used to the lame duck kind of issue. How much of your time the last decade or more has your department had to spend on these conference issues, and what's it going to mean to have that basically taken off your plate and be able to focus on some other things?
Well, that's a good question, Eric. We've had to be very fluid. I mean, that's just the nature of the job, and it's pretty much been the nature of our environment in the collegiate atmosphere. But I think now things have stabilized. I think one thing that the commissioner understates all the time, but I will overstate it for him, is I think the move he made to get the grant and rights by the ACC is probably one of the greatest moves that any college commissioner's ever made. You see, that's basically stopped expansion and expansion talks in its tracks by that one move. And Commissioner, that you are to be congratulated. To get everybody on the same page to do something like that is phenomenal. But for us, you know, when Commissioner called us November 28th of 2012 and invited us into the league, we started that day. We started preparing that day, every sport, because we didn't want to just come in the league. We knew the challenges that were going to be in front of us, but we wanted to make sure that we were set with our resources, we were set with our coaches, our support staffs, our academic training, to make sure that we could come in and compete. You know, I'm not naive enough to think we're going to go in and win handfuls and handfuls of championships, although that's going to be our goal, but we want to make sure that we're prepared to compete.
Yes, next question over here.
Kent Spencer, WHAS 11. Commissioner Swofford, when you first took that first phone call from Tom, how quickly did you know that this was going to be a good fit for the ACC?
Well, we, as I said in my remarks, I and many others have been watching Louisville and the progression for a number of years, and with everything that was going on over the last decade in terms of changes in conference membership and potential growth and so forth. Our institutions, we put together what we called a 444 committee. There's 4 presidents, 4 faculty reps, and 4 athletic directors, so that our governance bodies were connected. And they were charged with keeping an eye on a regular, ongoing basis on expansion and considering and analyzing what institutions might be a good fit under certain circumstances, if those circumstances were to occur, and if we ever reached a point where we wanted to expand further or you know, it needed additional members for whatever reason. So much to their credit and our athletic directors, council of presidents, and faculty reps collectively, I think we were very well prepared in terms of what we would do next under any given particular set of circumstances. And it was pretty evident that Louisville was a school that would be a tremendous fit to our conference, a tremendous addition to our conference, and it worked out where that opportunity arose. But when that opportunity arose, we were not starting from ground zero by any stretch of the imagination.
Take our next question here in the back.
Will Clark with 84 WHAS Radio. This question's for Tom. When you got the call that the ACC was going to accept U of L, just take us through the moment and what was said on that call and your emotions.
Well, from my standpoint, I was talking with Dr. Ramsey, and when John had called him, the thing that for me was there was relief, because it was a tense time. I mean, those 11 days from when I got a phone call from Pat Forty asking me about if the University of Maryland, if those rumors were true, and I didn't know it, but Pat had good sources, and we figured that we better get started, and we went to work quite rapidly. And so those 11 days were very, very tough. And there was really the weight of the world was on our shoulders because of conference expansion. We wanted a home. We knew we deserved a home, and we deserved a great place like the ACC. The league is so tradition-rich, so prestigious, and we felt that was the best fit for us at all times. And so that from getting that call, I don't know what Dr. Ramsey would say, but I'd tell you it was a great, great relief and a great privilege and honor just to be even hearing those words.
Go right here to the second row.
Fred Calgill with WLQY TV for Tom. Tom, when you got here in 1997, what was the inventory of what you inherited, your budget, how many sports you had, what kind of facilities did you have, and compare that to 2014?
I should ask you that question. You were here longer than I was. You've seen it all. Kevin, I believe our budget was 14.9, somewhere around there. And I think this year we're going to be somewhere in the 90s. 86 will be this year. So it's grown rapidly, but I think it's all been good growth. I think we've been, for the most part, a very self-sufficient program. I think we've been able to grow and reinvest into our programs. The number one thing I wanted to do, Fred, when I got here is make sure that all the programs felt they were as important as the next. Whether it was the women's cross-country program or the field hockey program or the football or men's basketball program, I wanted them to feel like they were the top program we had at this university. And I think hopefully they all feel that way. The one thing I wanted to make sure and ensure is that we had great coaches, because I think great coaches and the leadership they provide are the key things for us, because they mean so much for us. And then I wanted to assemble an administration around myself that could really turn some corners, and we had to make a lot of progress academically. And Commissioner, you'd be very proud to know that the leader who's done as good a job as anybody in the world, not in the country, in the world, in academics, is sitting right there, about three guys down. And Marvin, will you wave, because he's a Wake Forest alum. So I had to go to the ACC to bring him in, but he's done a phenomenal job with our academic programs, and we couldn't be more proud. But I think the number one thing we had to do, Fred, was change the culture. And we wanted to start with the NCAA, and we wanted to make sure that we were very cognizant of all the rules. We wanted to have a culture of compliance, and we wanted to work very, very hard to make that work.
And facilities, how many new facilities? Could you run through the list of everything?
Well, I think every program had a new facility the last 10 years. Or it's probably 12 years now, and then and I could be off by one or two, and then I think some are working on their second. But facilities, as you well know, are very important, because not only do they house our teams, but they're also recruiting tools. They've also been a big part of the makeup of this campus, and as this campus continues to grow and grow at exponential, numbers, it's going to be, it's great to be just a small part of it.
Next question right here on the end.
Tim Sullivan, Courier-Journal for Tom. Given the landscape nationally with litigation and the power conference's search for autonomy, how much more stable is your situation now than it would be or if you were not included in the ACC, or for those schools that are on the outside looking in?
I never really look at it as being on the outside looking in. What I look at it, I think when you come to talking about litigation and things like of the NCAA and the Labor Relations Board, I think that's going to affect all the schools in the country. I don't think it's going to be just a handful. And I think anytime you go to litigation, there's ramifications for everybody.
We're going to change up here over to the far left.
Jason Anderson, ESPN 680. This question is for Commissioner Swofford. We've heard from Dr. Ramsey and Tom Jurich about the 11 days that they went through and the stress-filled those days were. What were the 11 days like for the ACC and you in ultimately coming to the decision that it was Louisville?
You're speaking of the period when Maryland informed us that they were leaving.
They were going to leave, and you ultimately came to the conclusion that it was Louisville.
Well, we started immediately with discussions with our 444 committee that I referenced earlier, and then with the Council of Presidents. Because of the previous work that the committee had done and our staff had done internally, and other discussions we had had leading up to that, it was a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, when you think about it, you lose a school and you replace them with a school of the quality of Louisville in 11 days. That's pretty remarkable. But I think it gets back to that we weren't starting from ground zero. There was a lot of information there. We knew, quite frankly, everything we needed to know about the situation and about the University of Louisville. And through the course of basically a little over a week, and probably 4 or 5 phone calls of our governance structure, it came together very quickly, and it came together unanimously, I might add.
Do we have any further questions? Yes, we'll take one more back here in the far back.
Will Clark, WHAS Radio. This question's for Commissioner Swofford. Before this 11-day period and during the conference, was the University of Louisville ever on the ACC's radar for an expansion prior to the everybody's changing conferences and the expansions?
Well, it had been in the sense of the information that was being put together in terms of potential institutions.
Perfect.
It's been there from an ongoing standpoint.
I mean, I guess from the beginning of the conference swaps, not just that 11-day period, but then the year or so before that, was the University of Louisville on the radar?
It was on the radar, and then again had been, and I think the fact that the momentum that and trajectory that President Ramsey referenced, and that many of you have referenced, and that Tom had referenced. I mean, when that just continues and continues and continues, you ultimately it hits you right in the face, quite honestly. And the years just prior to that, and then the year of the invitation, you did pretty well too, I might add, which I appreciated greatly, by the way. It just kept coming.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Amy.